Good evening, morning, or afternoon, depending on when you are tuning in. This is our learner today. These are our tokens. This is what we're going to be taking data on so you can follow along. And we are going to be using some pictures today to use our yes and no for the sake of saving a little bit of space. We've got book, chair, apple, and slide. Now you can do this with pictures, but the best way to be teaching factual yes and no, in my opinion, is having physical things in the natural environment. So in this case, I would be asking, is this a book? Now I could also ask, is this a water bottle? And be pointing to this book, and the answer would be no. Obviously, the first answer would be yes. But that's a little big. We've limited space today. So we're going to be working with the pictures, though I do really highly encourage you to find a chair in your natural environment, or an actual apple, or an actual book. And if you're outside, you can definitely go by the slide, touch that slide, and say, is this a slide or something else, depending on your answer. So let's get started. All right, jumping in, we've done our preference assessment. Our learner chose that they would like to do sand art, so we have that visible here. We also have visible to them the first then board. So first we're going to do some work, then we'll do sand art. So they know 5 tokens, then sand art. And in this case as well, you can run this at the table. You can run this natural environment, which is the greatest because you can be in the kitchen and say, is this a refrigerator? Well, pointing to the refrigerator, and they can say yes when you get that far, or you can prompt them. But you can run this all around the house. You can run this outside. It's a great program to run NET. And you can also do it at the table too. And if you want to start out, sometimes it's beneficial to start at the table and have a full structure and be able to do a bunch of trials so that your learner can kind of get the hang of what you're looking for and what the answer is. We're going to stick with the apple this whole time so that we can pair the yes with this is an apple. Now, also items that you want to use with your learner, especially starting out, are going to be really great things that, let's say, they can receptively identify. Our learner eats apples every day. They eat 2 apples a day. They love apples. They will ask for apples. I want apple. You know, we know this is an apple, but we're not giving that yes, no answer here. So now we're making this connection too. So if I say, is this an apple? Yes. I've gone right in with the prompt. They say yes. Fantastic. We're going to mark that down. That was a full verbal prompt. And I'm going to go again. Is this an apple? Yes. My learner says yes. Fantastic. Now we've got 2 trials on the board, 2 full verbal prompts, and I'm going to start to fade it back a little bit. You may not be prompt fading this early on, depending on where your learner is, but for all intents and purposes, that is what we're doing next. Is this an apple? Yee. My learner says yes. Fantastic. Partial verbal. Cool. Let's do that again. Is this an apple? Yee. Yes, says my learner, and they get a token. And now we've got 4 trials down, 4 tokens on the board. We've got 1 more. In this case, I'm going to give an opportunity for independence. So I'll say, is this an apple? And if they say yes, that's right. So we've got our independent response. We're going to do sand art now. So we're all done with that. Now we're going to do some sand art. All right, we're going to come in with no this time, and we're going to do the same basic format. We're Errorless teaching. We're just starting out with no. We've done a bunch of yes. We're getting the hang out of it. This is great. Now we're going to change it up. And we're not going to be doing yes and no back to back, most likely. You're not going to randomly rotate between yes and no when your learner's first starting out, because it's really confusing. So we're going to stick with this apple for this instance. And we're going to go back with a different SD this time where the answer will be no. So I'm going to say, is this a car? No. And they say no. So we've prompted that first one. That was a full verbal. And we got our response. I'll go again. Is this a car? No. And they say no. And then we've got the second one. I almost faded out too quickly. Don't do that. Don't do it. Okay. But now I will. I'm going to do basically the same thing as I did the first time with yes, while I'm giving the example of the Errorless teaching. Is this a car? And then my learner says no. Fantastic. That's right. That's not a car. That's an apple. So we've got that partial verbal. And I think that's really important too to make the differentiation. So saying you're correct, this is not a car, it's an apple, without saying yes, it is an apple and adding that language in there. So let's do it again. Is this a car? Learner says no. That's right. It's not a car. It's an apple. So data looks very familiar here. And we're going to go in one more time and again give an opportunity for independence. Is this a car? And learner says no. That's right. It's an apple, not a car. Very good. So now it's time for our animal crackers. We finished our 5. Here is our data. And we're going to do something a little bit different in the next set. We're back with our learner and we're going to look at no again, but we're going to do it a little bit differently this time. Again, we've done our preference assessment. Our first then board is set up, and we're going to go back also with the apple. So in our last segment here, we had asked the SD, is this a car? So our learner knows, no, it's not a car, it's an apple. They're able to independently give me a few responses for no correctly with that SD. So I'm going to change it. But first I'm going to come in and I'm going to give that SD again. We'll do 2 trials of that. So I'm going to say, is this a car? Learner says no. Perfect. It's not a car. It's an apple. So we've got a correct response there on our data sheet. Is this a car? Learner says no. That's right. That's not a car. It's an apple. So we have 2 correct responses, 2 tokens on the board, and I'm going to ask a different question this time. So I'm going to say, is this a box? And if my learner says yes, or says box, or gives no response or anything other than no, we're going to go in there and error correct. So again, I'll say, is this a box? And my learner says box. I'll say no. And then they say no. I say, that's right. No, it's not a box. It's an apple. So now we had an incorrect response, and then we did a full verbal prompt, and that's what our data is going to look like. So we're going to go in again. This time I'm going to prompt that no there with a partial verbal because that's less intrusive than a full. Is this a box? Learner says no. Perfect. That's right. Not a box. It is an apple. And let's do that again. This case, I'm going to give an opportunity for independence. So I'll say, is this a box? Learner says no. Very good. It's not a box. It's an apple. And that's what our data looks like. We're set there. It's time for a Grogu break. All right, we're going to be looking at the same concept we were just at. Our learner's got a little bit more fluency, this time with no. We're going to rotate through our stimuli, what we're using for that. And our learner wants animal crackers again. So we're back to animal crackers, first then set up. I know, you guys get it. I just want to stress, you want to do that preference assessment every time. Make sure your stimuli is up to date. Keep your learner on track with you. We're attending. This is fantastic. So I'm going to pull out the slide. Is this an airplane? Learner says no. Very good. It's not an airplane. It's a slide. So we got that one correct. We'll pull it over here. Take out our book. Is this a snake? Learner says no. That's right. It's not a snake. It's a book. Now we'll come over here for apple. Is this a box? Learner says no. Awesome job. We've got 3 correct. So we can pull something else in now. We can pull in a water bottle, or we can go back again. Let's say that they don't have that full fluency every time. So we'll pull out the slide because they have trouble with that one sometimes. And I'm going to say, is this a jar? And they say jar. So we're going in for that error correction now. We've got that incorrect response. So I'll say no. And then they say no. That's right. No, it's not a jar. It is a slide. And so we've given that full verbal here. I could have gone in with a partial verbal. If you're speeding through like I just was and you forgot, that's okay. Just make sure you write down the correct data. That's super important. So give an opportunity for independence again. Is this a bag? So I've switched up, actually. I could do that, or I could go back to, is this a jar again? But I'm going to go, is this a bag? In this particular case, the learner says no. Very good. It's not a bag. It is a slide. All right, we're about to get wild now. We're going to do random rotation, yes and no. So my learner, they know every time. Yes, if I ask, is this a slide? No, if I say, is this and anything else? They're doing a lot better. We're going to start to get those yeses and nos without having yes or no be the full 5 response answer. So what we're going to do here is I'll take out our slide and I'll say, is this a slide? Learner says yes. Great job. Yes, this is a slide. And I'm going to give an independent response. And now in this case, I'm going to now ask for a no response. So I'll say, is this a giraffe? Learner says yes. So that's incorrect. So we're going to say no. Learner says no. That's right. It's not a giraffe. It's a slide. So we had that incorrect. We gave a full verbal here. And then we're going to go ahead and we'll try that again. Is this a giraffe? Learner says no. Very good. Not a giraffe. It is a slide. And so I'll stick with the slide again. Is this a giraffe? Learner says slide. So we're going to say no. Learner will say no. And that's right. This is not a giraffe. It is a slide. So we had incorrect there. And then we did a full verbal again here. Let's fade that out. We're not going to give an opportunity for independence in this case because we want to bring that back as easily as we can and still be giving those prompts until we make those connections. If we're not quite there yet, I mean, it is a judgment call, but I'm going to give a prompt for this one. Is this a giraffe? Learner says no. Very good. That is a slide, not a giraffe. So we did a partial verbal, and that's what our data is going to look like. Okay, we're coming back in here with some more examples of yes and no, random rotation, things you might run into. So let's say this is a different session, and we're at some point in the session, we're going to run this again. Is this a slide? The learner says yes. Very good. This is a slide. And we give that token. Now I'm going to ask a yes question again. Is this a slide? Learner says yes. Very good. Yes, it is a slide. Is this a cake? Learner says no. Oh my gosh, you're right. That's right. It's not a cake. It's a slide. We're going to give really high grade praises, like your grade A praise there. We went back and forth with the same one. We had mixed it up. It was great. They got the correct answers. Now I'm going to take out the book. And I'd be a little sneaky in a way because I'm going to ask if it's a slide. And since we were just doing the slide, we might get an incorrect answer. Or we might get a correct one. We don't know. Let's see. Is this a slide? My learner's going to say yes, which is incorrect. So we'll go in and we will error correct. So I'll say, So again, we're taking our data and we're doing that partial verbal. The learner says yes. So now we're going to do a full verbal. No. Learner says no. And I'll say, correct. That is not a slide. It is a book. So instead of marking partial verbal and then full verbal here, that was all still that one trial. The full verbal is what we got the response we were looking for at. So we don't have that partial verbal mentioned there. It took the full verbal to get our response. So I'll go back here again. Is this a slide? And our learner says no this time. That's right. It's not a slide. It's a book. So we've got that partial verbal there, and that's what our data looks like. Just wrapping up, thank you so much for watching. Please drop a like or subscribe. It helps the channel. It helps me reach more people if you are so inclined. And I will be having more videos up probably in about 2 weeks is my guess for the next one. I've been really sick, so it was hard for me to get a video up. This time was a little bit later than that. But yeah, I'm going to have some standalone materials too up on Ko-fi, as well as some materials that will work in conjunction with future videos. So keep an eye out for those, and thank you again.